in the medium-term budget policy statement of 2019, we outlined the condition precedent that we would require to even entertain any take-on of Eskom's debt. They are currently doing all the things that we've asked. They are making progress. In some areas, it's still a bit slow, but there is very much a clear understanding that the debt belongs to Eskom, and Eskom needs to do certain things that reflect that they are concerned about the debt, and to the extent that they require help, once all those things are done, we can have a conversation. So it is not the National Treasury problem, it is an Eskom problem, and we've outlined that that debt is a symptom of many other issues that needs to be resolved at Eskom. I'll leave it there, Minister. Thanks.
Yes, that's where we are on that issue, and I think the question that Miriam raises is partially muddied by this persistent talk about the conversion of Eskom debt into equity. People talk all kinds of things. I think it's not advisable for people to start talking about the conversion of Eskom debt to equity before we know what the actual outcomes of the divisionalization of Eskom is. And I think people should just hold their horses. Don't let us run ahead of the horses. That's to be a problem, because the cart will be before the horse and it won't move. So there will be a stampede and a crisis there. And the mengermoes, as the Africans say. So let's leave that matter there until such time that we are ready to issue the official statements and get out of the speculative mode. Thank you, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll go back to Sasha's question. She asked it a little earlier. We're just waiting for Momo to get online. Sasha's from the Daily Maverick. She asked a little earlier a question. Please, can you elaborate on the proposed changes to loop structures and exchange controls mentioned in the speech?
Thanks, Mashudu. And apologies, I was online earlier, but I couldn't unmute, so I could hear everything. But anyway,
put on your video so we can be seen, please. There's a request to put on videos when you speak. Thank you.
I might not be presentable, DG, but I'll do so. Okay, here I am. So what we've done is there is an explanatory note that we've issued, which is on our website, which provides further details. Basically, it says that, firstly, we made lots of announcements, a major announcement on capital flow management on a negative list approach, that there's been progress made on that, and on that score, there'll be new regulations which will replace the current exchange control manuals, and could be done hopefully by budget next year. Secondly, we just make further announcements related to inward listing instruments, which are in foreign denominated, and which are invested on exchanges in South Africa, that those will be deemed to be domestic, so we can get more of them. Secondly, if you look at the loop structures, we removing the restrictions. Loops basically refer to when South Africans sort of invest in a vehicle outside, and then that vehicle invests back into South Africa. That was not allowed, so that's been allowed. And we also make it easier for corporates when they want to do foreign borrowing with recourse to South Africa, that it's not, we're moving away from a prior approval system to them just conforming towards a framework and reporting requirements for the SAB. We also talk about, if you look at the explanatory note, just about further changes to make South Africa a financial center for Africa, that we are in serious discussions with some of the industry associations to make further changes, which hopefully will be done with and will be able to announce in the budget. I should add that you'll see in the note, we also cover a lot of the agreements at NADLAC with on retirement withdrawals and so on. So you could read that as well. And there's a financial inclusion draft paper. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Momo. We will move now to Carol Payton's question. She's from the Business Day. Minister, could you please explain what the holdup is with the World Bank loan, which has still not been granted?
Well, there are major conversations taking place between the National Treasury and the World Bank. This, if I understand it correctly, and Tsepiso might correct me here, this is not a COVID-related grant or loan, and that's what complicates the issues. So conversations are ongoing, and when we reach at a point of agreement, we'll let you know. But the conversations are going on, and in my view, the probability of success is probably less, but nevertheless, we'll continue pushing for success to occur. I'm very concerned about some of the postures that the World Bank is taking, but we're discussing internally, and we are going to refine our approach and strategy in conversation with the World Bank so that we can have a positive outcome. So for now, please wait until we conclude the conversations. If they are successful, well, if they are successful, yes, we'll inform you. If they are not successful, we'll still inform you at the same time. So I think we should leave it there for now, less in the realm of speculation, and wait for the facts to be put before you. Maybe you could focus a little bit on the medium-term budget policy statement. It might help. That's what we're here for, not for speculative purposes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. We've got another question from Paul from the PKF. Both in the February budget speech and now again here today, you do not seem to be able to address the seriousness of the public sector wage bill reduction needed. Each time it is deflected to another minister, and there does not seem to be any traction with the necessary reductions.
Well, I'm not the minister responsible for public service and administration. Therefore, I can't usurp their powers. I don't have those powers. The powers to reach an agreement with the trade union rests with the Department of the Public Service and Administration. I can't usurp other ministers' powers. I must stay in my lane. And that's what I'm doing. I'm staying in my lane. The responsibility for negotiating with the unions lies with the Minister of the Department of Public Service and Administration. I can't usurp their powers. I'm sorry. That's all I can tell you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll move to Mfuneko from Reuters. What is the reasoning behind not including contingent liabilities in the debt projections, especially since many of the guarantees for SOCs have or are likely to materialize soon? DG?
Oh, I thought Tsepiso is taking it, but Tsepiso, maybe you can take that. It's straightforward on your side. Thank you.
Thank you, DG. As I understand, the question is asking why we're not adding guarantees to the debt because the guarantees are realizing. Look, that's not the convention. Data is presented in a way that makes sense and that is standard across countries, and there's standards that we follow. And across various countries, you will see that the standard is to report that and also show the contingent liabilities separately. And to the extent that you want to add on the guarantees or contingent liabilities to the debt, it's a very straightforward process. You can do that yourself, but we need to be able to show what is the actual debt and what is the actual contingent liabilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tshepiso. We'll move to Denise Mhlanga. She's from Biz News. Her first question is that, is the government still intent on fighting corruption as it says it is? Why doesn't it shut down Denel and SAA, sites of rampant corruption? And her second question, you spoke about measures to improve business efficiency, cutting red tape. Exactly what is envisaged and changes to labor laws?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So, changes to labor laws, again, that's the lane of the Minister of Employment and Labor. So I kick for touch there. I'll send it in that direction. I think the key issue really that confronts the country, and I suppose Duncan should maybe come on board here. The key issue that confronts this country is also a mindset change. You know, we used to boast about the fact that we're one of the richest countries in Africa, blah, 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 and our behavior and our psychology was in that direction. I'm sorry, the situation has changed. And so we need a mindset change. We need this, maybe some social workers and psychologists must come and help people to understand the situation is different. Your debt to GDP is rising, your debt servicing costs are high, you don't have much left for investment, which is critical for growth and so on. Bearing in mind that the bulk of the investment anyway is not going to come from the public sector, but it's going to come from the private enterprise, and that the key issue is the set of issues I put in place as being critical to create confidence for people to invest into the future. I think that's very important. So whether you are private enterprise, whether you are a farm worker, mine worker, engineering worker, banking worker, and so on. I mean, I'm sure you're all aware that the banks, in particular, are reducing their staff numbers because more and more they are having to use technology. And therefore, they don't need as many people as they used to do before. They are closing branches because very few people go into branches now. An increasing number, particularly of the younger generation, are now using technology to work. So the penetration of technology into the world of work is huge. And so it requires a lot of mindset change from all of us. The days when, you used to walk to the teller all the time and explain your life's problems, those days are over. You can talk to your bank manager via Zoom or MS Teams or via WhatsApp, whatever it is. The world has changed. Like, look at this press conference. Previously, would have been downstairs here in Cape Town in an open auditorium having this press conference. Look what we're doing now. We're meeting through MS Teams. The world is radically changed. I mean, when I have to meet with the executive committee at the National Treasury, we no longer huddle together in that horrible boardroom of Dondos to talk. We now huddle together in MS Teams or via Zoom, and we still do the same amount of work. I'm able to sign documents. For recently, when my gadget began to misbehave, I was able to sign documents instantaneously from my IT system sitting in Makhubaskloof. I do work that is processed in Pretoria, but I'm in Makhubaskloof in my study in Makhubaskloof. The world has changed. So all of us need to understand that we have to change I know I went on and on a bit, but Duncan might wish to say something to answer the question directly.
Yes, thanks, Minister. Thanks, Mashudu. I hope you can hear me. Just to add to what the Minister said, the specific point around the measures to improve business efficiency and cutting red tape. As you'd know, we have made a commitment to improve the ease of doing business, and in particular also to improve our ranking in that index. And that ranking has a few different components, some of which relate to the time it takes to start a business and permitting issues and so on. And that work is certainly ongoing and is led by the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition. And in fact, they have a working group with the World Bank where they work on specific targets that they've set themselves to improve South Africa's ranking on the ease of doing business. One of those areas is around starting a business, and it looks as though there's been some good progress there, in particular the use of the Biz Portal, the new government portal that is used in order to register new businesses at the CIPC and also allow for the opening of bank accounts. So it's clear that there's been some progress there, but that work is led by the DTIC in collaboration with the World Bank, and it is really about making sure that businesses can register quickly, can get the permits they need in order to start making a meaningful contribution so that we can unlock private investment in the economy. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Duncan and Minister. We've got a question from Kaifes Hosanna from the Sunday Times. Please elaborate on the plan to introduce tax increases of 40 billion in the next 4 years. Which taxes are likely to increase?
DG?
Thanks, Chris. Is Chris on the line?
Come in, but I think Chris is on the line. But maybe just to say, I think the key is with tax, we only make announcements on budget day. So you're going to have to wait till budget day. We talk about, obviously, the revenue that we're going to need. And we tend to then look from now till budget day to look at what can be done. Bear in mind that we did say in this budget that we're also keenly aware of the impact of higher taxes on growth on one hand. On the other hand, I think we are looking, obviously, the 40 billion figure is over 4 years, so we're looking at 25 billion over 3 years. But we'll take those decisions as and when we come to each budget day in the next 3 years. Chris, do you want to add anything?
Chris seems to have gone AWOL. But Momo, can you talk a little bit about the tax measures that we've taken so far as part of the economic support during the COVID process? Just to remind folks what we did, and which was in the speech as well, please.
Yes, so during COVID, what we've done is we had lots of deferrals on, for example, over the employment tax incentive, we allowed taxpayers to actually hold on to that. So it was like an interest-free loan. We allowed delays on payments of many excise duties and so on. At the time, and I think in terms of the take-up, we're looking at a figure of between 30 to 40 billion, which has been taken up. So those were all the COVID measures that were announced in March and April this year. So we are, in a sense, we've given back quite a lot this year, but obviously there's revenue needs for next year. And as I said earlier, it's something that we will be looking at over the next 3 months. Bear in mind, the big taxes we have is personal income tax, corporate income tax, and VAT. And of course, the smaller ones are excise duties, fuel levies, and so on. Chris may well be muted. I think the problem that we had, Minister, so that's why he can't come on. He is online.
Thanks. That's fine.
Thank you very
say
much,
something,
Momo.
Chris? You there? Oh.
Yes, Chris has now can now speak.
Thanks. I think Momo covered everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Just a point of clarity, Minister. I think it's a question from ENCA, Hadi Jokos. She's saying that since you say that for SAA, it's not a bailout. So how much money has been allocated to SAA? It's about 4 questions. How much to repay debt? How much for the BRP practitioners? And what's the total of new money?
Tsepiso, please, can you break down that 10.4 for us, please?
Yes, Minister, I can do that. For the government guaranteed debt and interest, we 6.4 billion rands that we announced at the time of the budget, and that is solely for paying of government guaranteed debt and also the interest. Then there is the business rescue package, which then is comprising of payment to staff because they would have to let go of staff. And that business rescue plan is actually public, so the journalists can also have a look at it. And also some of those amounts would go towards assisting some of the subsidiaries so that when SAA, or rather the new airline is being put forward, it does not carry through some of the liabilities that it was carrying prior. Of some of the remaining guaranteed debt, there's letters of credit and also unflown ticket liabilities that were also guaranteed to the tune of 2 billion rands. So if you unwind the old SAA, those would also become payable. They're also included in that 10.5 billion rands. Then to start a new airline, that amount is not included. There is still a process by Department of Public Enterprises, also supported by Treasury and SAA, looking for a strategic equity partner to come and contribute towards this new air that we've talked about. So that is essentially how you then look at the funding that is being provided to SAA, of which the 10.5 is just for the business rescue plan. Thank you, Minister.
And also, I wanted to add that there's a bit of politicking on my side. The DA is completely out of order when they said that we capitulated and we didn't stand our ground. Well, we're not standing any ground. There's no capitulation. The Minister of Finance is part and parcel of the government. And the government has made a decision that we need to support the business rescue practitioners plan. It's a decision of the government. That's why the consequence of that decision is that we had to scramble around to find the 10.5 billion to support the business rescue practitioners plan. No buckling under pressure here or any nonsense like that. I think the DA must do their work first, before they make grandstanding things like that. And I don't take kindly to them referring to state-owned enterprises as zombies. They're not zombies. Behavior is zombie-like, maybe themselves. So they must stop this nonsense, Let's have a insult one another. Okay, before I get worked up, let me stop there.
Thank you very much, Minister. We've got a question from Miriam Issa. She's from Finwe. The bill was tabled in Parliament last August, and the President said earlier this year that the plan was on course for implementation. What are the Treasury's thoughts on the cost of the NHI and how it can be incorporated into future budgets?
And I suggest that we stick to the medium-term budget policy statement, please. Can we stick to this is a press conference for the medium-term budget policy statement. Can we stick to that, please? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, Minister.
There's another question from Thabo Mokone from the Sunday Times. In terms of the benefits of civil servants, public office bearers, which areas are you targeting? What examples can you give in this regard? He's talking about benefits of public servants and public office bearers.
No. On civil servants, I think I've answered the question that the conversations are taking place, being led by the Minister of the Department of Public Service and Administration. So let's leave it there so we come out of the realm of speculation and causing trouble where it's not necessary. As far as the public representatives are concerned, their terms and conditions are normally determined by a commission for the remuneration of public representatives. When that commission sits, I, if requested, will make a submission about why I think consideration should be given to the reduction in the compensation for public representatives going forward. Because the compensation that they're currently receiving is a pre-COVID compensation. The situation has changed. Therefore, we must change with the situation. But if I'm invited to make representation before that commission, I'll do that. But I think my submission is that political decisions need to be taken by the leadership, by the political parties themselves, and also by the representatives in the different forums in Parliament, National Parliament, NCOP, provincial legislatures, and the city councils in their chambers. So there's a long political process, but I think understands that the situation failure to understand that will continue thinking the same way, or because once, for example, the compensations are reduced, it means that instead of going to shop, I don't know, in Sandton, you now go and shop in Eastgate, you know, and the prices in Sandton will begin to react to the fact that there are less and less people coming to shop in Sandton, they're going to Eastgate. And so the economics of balancing out will come into the picture. So, but I think you notice that in the speech we say consideration should be given. We're not saying this is what is going to happen. We're saying consideration. Consideration means let's debate, let's discuss, let's come to an agreement about these issues. Already in the private sector, there are reductions in compensation. Globally, many companies are also beginning to reduce compensation. And those of us who have got security of employment at least should join in the conversation about what to do about our own compensation. I know it's very difficult to ask people to discuss their own compensation situation, but we have to talk about these things. Otherwise, you can't say when you are facing a debt to GDP ratio of 95%, you say you'll continue in the same way you have been doing things. You're going to have a fiscal crisis, and I'm warning you, you're going to, I'm using Bishop Tutu's words, Archbishop Tutu's words, I'm warning you. If you continue in this direction, you are headed for crisis. I'm warning you.
Thank you very much, Minister. In keeping with that, we've got a question from Denise Mhlanga. She's from Biz News. She's asking, do you think there is enough in this budget to ensure that we can avoid a financial crisis in South Africa? Earlier this year, you spoke about the risks being high, about that of the sovereign debt crisis.
Edgar, can I ask Edgar DG to take that question?
Edgar can come on, but let me just say yes. We are saying that, and we are signaling that, and we are giving examples of at least 2 countries whereby we're saying it happened when they did not take their debt situation seriously, because when we experience a debt default, it's going to be challenging, it's going to be dire. So I think what we are saying, and I think the warning that the minister is giving is that when we can still see, when it's still dark, if you think about that quotation in the Bible, when there's still light and we can still see, let's walk the right path, so that when it's dark, we can stop and do other things or sleep or relax. And again, when there is light, we can move. So I think the analogy there is simply that at this point in time, we can finalize our economic reconstruction and structural program, move with those structural reforms, address our debt situation, embark on a fiscal consolidation agenda which is responsible, so that we are able to claw back, and we are able to actually focus on supporting productive sectors of the economy. In that way, that's the light that we can see at this point in time. But yes, if we don't see it, we are simply going to get into trouble. So I think the point that you are making, Minister, and that the question that you were asking earlier on, is that we are aware of things that we should not be doing. We should, and we know we have to close down public entities that are not sustainable, state-owned companies that are not performing, that are not core. We have to close them down or sell them, and only those that can boost the economy we should be able to support. So there are many things that we know we have to do in order not to get into that trouble that we tried to demonstrate today, that if we're not careful, we'll be in trouble. Edgar, do you want to come in and maybe add? Thank you.
Thanks, DG. I think to some extent you've covered me. Let me just say that, yeah, we do believe and are convinced that this plan can work. Its 2 components are reducing the size of the primary deficit over the MTF and beyond, and closing it ultimately in the year 25-26. And secondly, a shifting in the composition of expenditure from consumption, specifically reduction in the public sector wage costs, through what is effectively a wage freeze, and shifting that towards capital payments which are growth friendly, resulting in capital payments that rise by 7.8%. Growth is going to be critical, as the DG was saying. And so if we can increase the size of nominal GDP, the denominator, through reform efforts, and we do not return to the long-run averages previous the crisis, we will definitely be able to achieve a primary surplus in 25-26, and with it a stabilization of the levels of debt. Finally, it's of course going to be important at the same time to start arresting the debt burden arising from SOCs, but this plan definitely can work, including because it reduces the interest costs related to government debt, and therefore overall interest costs in the economy as we go forward. So the answer is yes, this plan definitely can work, and we're confident in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG, Minister and Edgar. There's another question here. He's from Lucanio. How does the minister assess the chance of further credit downgrades for South Africa, given that there's more fiscal slippage, even compared to June's budget? Given the ongoing argument over wages, do you think investors will attach much credibility to the new fiscal plan?
Well, I start from the point of view that we're doing whatever we can in a very difficult situation. I do not expect any further downgrades, but if those do occur, do not burn me at the stake. We hold conversations with the ratings agencies, and I don't know whether it's tomorrow or Friday, there's another conversation with one of the ratings agencies. We explain
today.
Is it today?
Yeah, we're meeting Fitch after this meeting.
Okay. So we're meeting Fitch after this meeting and we'll explain our situation and we'll answer questions and we'll hear what their response is. We can't hide the numbers we see before us from the ratings agencies. Ours is to engage in robust conversation and debate with them. And the numbers are what they are. And they will then go to their committees and make whatever decisions they want. I'm not in a position to prejudge their decisions, but I don't see any reason why they would want to downgrade us, in particular because we're pursuing an active scenario to control the situation, as it were close the mouth of the hippopotamus. So I don't want to use the word I am confident this, I'm confident that, because that's meaningless. But I think that we are going to engage in a robust debate and conversation with them. And depending on what their own assessment is, they will reach at their own conclusions. But we are of the view that there's no need for further downgrades for South Africa at all. There's no need for that. I think we've been punished enough during a pandemic, Nohal, and I think the numbers and the analysis will speak for itself. Yeah. It's a piece of to say something.
No, Minister, you covered what needed to be covered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister.
A question from the Daily Maverick, Ray Mahlaka. He's asking, in 2019, 2020, the government expects compensation of public servants to be about 41% of tax revenue. What is the percentage for the 2020-21?
The answer is rolling. Answer is rolling. Peter? Roy,
it's about 57% this year, Minister, but that's because, in partly because of the dramatic decline in our revenue because of COVID. It'll go back down again next year, but it is this year elevated at about 57% of revenue. Thanks.
Okay, there you are.
Thank you very much, Edgar.
What is this thing?
We are dimly coming to the end of the press conference. I think there's just a few more questions that we'll need to deal with, and we're just wrapping up now. There's a last question from Miriam Issa. Does National Treasury plan to continue auctioning 6.6 billion rand of government bonds on a weekly basis through this year and next year?
Thank you, Mashudu. Yes, Minister. The straightforward answer is yes for this year. For next year, we will provide guidance at the end of this fiscal year. It is difficult to commit to next year as it stands. And I know the other question around there, which I've seen here, is, given that government is ahead of funding, why were the auction levels not reduced? Well, obviously, we look at this in a holistic manner, and we're not just looking at one instrument. So if one instrument is doing well and others are not doing well, the overfunding in other instruments will compensate for the underperformance in other areas. And then another question that has come through is around whether government will be accessing the international bond markets in the medium term. For this year, we are not planning to do so. We've given an indication of where the $7.3 billion US would come from. But going forward, the funds that we received this year from international finance institutions, we do not foresee those funds coming through. They were reacting to a shock. And once that shock, they believe it's been dealt with, we'll certainly have to go back to the international capital markets and raise bonds like we've been doing in the past. But having said that, it's a balance of market conditions and also our requirements and to some extent the kind of buffers that we have, and all that interplay give us a sense of what the best strategy is at the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tshepiso. Colleagues, we have come to the end of the media briefing. I'd like to suggest to colleagues, if there are any other questions that they would like to pose to officials of National Treasury or the Ministry, please send them through to our media desk and we'll have those questions answered for you. So I'd like to thank our panelists who joined us this afternoon. That is the Minister of Finance, Mr. Tito Mboweni, Deputy Minister of Finance, Dr. David Masondo, the Director General of National Treasury, Mr. Dondo Mukajane, Governor of the South African Reserve Bank, Mr. Lisicha Khanyaho, and the Commissioner of SARS, Mr. Edward Kisfete. And I'd also like to thank all the National Treasury officials who assisted with answering all the questions on this call this afternoon. I'd like to say thank you once again for joining us for the post-MTBPS media briefing. Good evening.
Thank you.
All right, that brings the time now to 4 minutes past 5 p.m. You only get an hour of SA Today with me, Flola Dwaba. So that was the medium-term budget policy statement briefing. Questions from the media, they're being answered by the panelists, including, of course, the finance minister himself. And that's, of course, coming on the back of the medium-term budget policy statement that was delivered by the minister. We've got a lot of reaction from business, from labor, as well as political reaction. A lot of talk about the SOEs, and no doubt there will continue to be talk about the 10.5 billion rand that has been that will be allocated to SAH to implement its business rescue plan. All right, we're going to take a short break for now. News after this.
Your TV works hard for you. Treat it right. Pay your business TV license today.
In the trenches of business, don't lose sight of the bigger picture. With Nedbank systems integration and electronic banking solutions, you can minimize risk, increase efficiencies, and stay on top of your cash flow. To guide your growth, search Nedbank Bigger Picture Business Banking.
Another day begins. While we do our part at home and head out to the world to rebuild our community. In these uncertain times, Ubank celebrates you. and is here to support you as you bravely show up to build a better tomorrow. Thank you. We salute you. Ubank, growing with you.
Did you know that as a valid TV license holder, you can now win your share of R500,000 in daily prizes? Yes, you only have to renew or pay your domestic TV license. Then dial *120*45887# or visit tvlicgames.co.za and take a chance at our Wheel of Fortune Spin and Win or Scratch Pad. Enter to win award-winning giveaways such as airtime, shopping vouchers and household appliances. Dial *120*45887# or visit tvlicgames.co.za to enter now. Terms and conditions apply. USSD 20 cents per 20 seconds, R1.50 per entry. T's and C's apply. TV licenses, making more content possible every day. Hashtag made possible by you.
Watching SA Today here on SABC News. Thanks for being with us. The Special Investigating Unit says it's going after more than 6,000 government officials who unduly benefited from the Unemployment Insurance Fund's temporary relief scheme. Briefing Parliament's watchdog, the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, the SIU, said that these government employees benefited from over 41 million rand in compensation.
6,140 government employees all received unemployment insurance money while still employed. Other beneficiaries were either underage, dead or in prison.
7 DCS inmates were identified to be claiming from the relief fund to a total of 40,657 rand and 93 cents. Then we had deceased individuals who were paid TERS benefits totaling to 441,144 rand and 34 cents, which represents 68 deceased beneficiaries making use of 72 bank accounts.
59 officials who benefited unduly are from the National Defence Force.
There should be dismissals. We cannot have a situation whereby people who continue to be on the payroll of the state then loot the state